Good day, friends. This is Sanjay Chaturvedi. I'm a firm owner and senior business coach with Action Coach. And this is my 10th year with Action Coach. And today I'm going to be talking to you about sales. One particular aspect of sales is that, a lot of business owners tend to take this side to be of lesser importance. So we believe that for any business, sales and marketing is going to be very, very crucial, apart from, of course, the delivery and the distribution portion. So without further ado, let me go into this subject. Let me start off by saying there are 4 types of salespeople. Generally speaking, there are 4 types of salespeople. The first type is what we call the order taker. And how do you tell an order taker? Basically, that person waits for someone to ask if they can buy. So if you've been to, so I'm speaking to you from the city of Pune, you go to some of these sweetmeat stores or you go to these bakeries and people are waiting for you to say what you want, right? That's a typical order taker. Sometimes this happens in B2B business also. So that's what is one type of salesperson. The second type of salesperson is what we call a product pusher. The product pusher is so much in love with their product that they keep talking about each feature of the product without bothering to explain what is the real advantage or value to the user of that product and how it will solve their particular challenge. So the product pusher you will learn about a product pusher if they're talking 80% of the time in a sales meeting and the customer is only speaking 20% of the time, right? That's one clue that if you yourself are a product pusher or if your sales team is in the product pushing mode, that's what will happen. The third type of salesperson is what we call the overseller. This is a dangerous sort of situation where the person will overcommit just in order to get the sale. So they're willing to lose the long-term relationship for the short-term benefit of a sale. And the fourth type of salesperson, which is what we want all the people we coach to become, is what we call the problem solver. So the problem solver helps the customer to find what they need in a very nice sort of way. And that leads us to the definition of sales by Action Coach. And I request you to make a note of this so that, any negative beliefs you have in your mind, they get further removed about salespeople. Any negative beliefs, they get further removed once you see this definition. The definition is professionally, the key word is professionally helping other people to buy. So any company or any product or any service is there in the marketplace because there's a need for that service. Now the salesperson's job is to find the customers and connect them with the product or service which will solve their needs in a professional manner. So when we talk about professional, we usually talk about CAs, doctors. Usually professionals, they need to do a lot of studying and then practicing before they call themselves professionals. Unfortunately, this is not true in a lot of cases for sales. People just print out on their visiting card, business development manager or whatever, and then they are in sales. Or they learn sales by experience. There's a lot of business owners that I coach, they tell me we learned by experience, right? They being mainly of technical in nature, technicians originally, they've learned sales as they went along in business. And usually the business owner generally tends to be the best salesperson, for whether they've learned it the hard way by making mistakes or whether they've actually been trained, right? So professionally helping other people to buy is the definition of sales. So your purpose is to professionally help people to take that product or that service which will solve their particular need or their want at that or their desire at that time. So when we talk about professionals, any professional whose worth is salt has to continuously train. So if you or your team want to become better professional salespeople, there needs to be a library of books that you have. The books by Brad Sugars, the books by Brian Tracy, particularly in psychology of selling, should be some of the go-to material which you have handy so that you get back on track. Because not having sales is the single biggest cause for worry and cash flow problems of most small and medium businesses. And it's not rocket science, it can be learned, it needs to be practiced a bit. And I'm going to cover some key elements as we go along in this short video. So when we talk about sales, one important thing is one must examine whether a business owner or a professional salesperson, what are the beliefs I have about sales? Because those beliefs are either going to make or mar your future. And those beliefs are hidden. So we must, a lot of times people carry a lot of negative beliefs about salespeople, that these people get after us, they follow up too much, they call us on the Sunday, they don't take no for an answer. Whereas others have a very positive set of beliefs about them. They sometimes our clients say they're go-getters, they're polished, they're charming, they're good communicators. So just examine your own beliefs, because your beliefs will lead you to take actions and decisions about whether to hire people or not. So these beliefs are very important. What are your beliefs about salespeople? If you have a pen and paper handy, just jot them down. I don't have much time, so I'm just going to move on. But please jot down your beliefs about salespeople. And I do hope they are positive beliefs. Now, the other important aspect about sales is one must realize that sales decisions, most sales decisions are largely based on emotion, and they use logic to justify it. So you'll see a lot of people who buy fancy cars, but you know that they can't use the full power of that car. They justify the logic of buying that expensive car, which cannot be justified actually, by saying that it's safe and it's powerful and it'll keep my family safe. So they'll use logic to justify it, but actually the decision has been based on emotion. It is more to do with how they want to show the world that they worked hard and they've come up in life. So that's the reason they made that luxury item purchase. That is an example I took, but generally speaking, whether it's an industrial sale or it's a commercial sale or it's a retail sale, whatever it is, you will find that since you're dealing with human beings, and human beings being emotional people, emotional creatures, they will take decisions based on emotion and justify based on logic. So what this means to us is, in the sales process, or in the way I conduct my sales training, or in the way I conduct my sales in my organization, I must keep in mind that until I hit the emotion of the person I'm speaking to, particularly in B2B sales, I will not get that decision. So there is in emotion, there is an element of relationship building, and your sales process should have the necessary touch points so that people trust you and your service offerings. First, they buy you, and then they buy your product or service. Please remember that. So let's move on. So when we talk about sales, making sales simple, one aspect, of course, when you're trying to build a relationship and trying to reach the emotion, there has to be good communication. And in our case, when we speak of communication as true communication, is really the response that you get. It's not good enough me feeling that I'm doing a great job of presenting here. It's how do you respond to it, how much value you draw from this video. So true communication is a response you get. And for true communication to happen, there are three tools here, and I'll also cover some NLP techniques as well. So first thing is words, right? The words you use, but they are the least important, friends. Words are the least important. The tone of voice is much more important, and even more important is the body language. Now, if I'm a professional salesperson, or I'm a business owner who is building his business with time, he creates a sales team within his business. He or she needs to be aware of the words, the voice, the body language, and of course there needs to be practice. That's what we said. Professional salespeople train continuously, so you need to be training on these aspects. So there are nice books on this, and there's nothing to beat actual practice. So 7% of your communication is through words. 38% is through the tone of voice. So if I say hello in a sweet voice, it has a different meaning than when I say hello. That has a completely different connotation. The word is the same, but the connotation completely different. And even more important is, what is the body language? Am I leaning forward? Or am I leaning back with my hands folded like this, leaning back into the chair? That tells me I'm not interested. Or are my hands closed tightly like this? That means again, I'm not listening, right? So a lot of time the body language is what is being spoken to loud and clear, which comes across very loud and clear. So loud and clear that sometimes they can't hear the words you're speaking because of the body language you're conveying. If you're not aware of your body language and your tone of voice, therefore, one of the first things you can do to improve your sales is to record your own sales call. Let me move forward. We also talk about neuro-linguistic programming here. Very briefly, it's a long word, but it's the study of how we use words and senses to create our own reality. So here, when you want to build a rapport or connect with a person, we say match and mirror. So match and mirror means if they're talking visual language, use visual language. I'll come to that in a bit. If they're auditory people, speak auditory. If you're or kinesthetic people, then use kinesthetic language. If you're confused, use all three. If they're leaning back, the positive body language, you match and mirror them. So if they're leaning forward, you also gently lean forward. Don't copy them exactly, not like monkey see, monkey do, but a similar kind of, that shows them from a body language perspective that you're communicating with them. Very important and needs to be practiced. The other modalities of communication, these three ways are which a human being communicates with another. So visual, auditory, and kinesthetic are the three. So a visual person communicates better when they see pictures. The auditory person communicates better when they hear words, and kinesthetic when they do. So when you're not sure of these three things, do all the three in your sales presentation, whether in a B2B situation or a B2C situation. Make sure you're communicating on visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Make sure your words and your tone of voice and your body language is right. And that, of course, needs to be practiced before you can get it right. Right? Because that's an important part of connecting with people. And unless that relationship and they know, like, and trust you, the sale will not happen. Right? So we are talking about sales here and professionally helping people to buy. The other important aspect is what is the DISC profile, the psychometric profile of people. So is it a dominant person you're dealing with? Is it an influencer or a friendly person? Is it a stable person or a very detail-oriented person? You need to know your own DISC profile. It's a simple instrument. It takes 10 minutes to do, but you need to understand yourself first. And then you should be able to quickly understand the person who's in front of you, whether they are D, I, S, or C, so that you can communicate right with them. The way you communicate with a D will be very different to the way you communicate with an I or a S or a C, right? So as a salesperson, you will come across all these different personality types. And you need to understand your own personality types and modify your behavior so that you can deal with all the four, right? First of all, you need to be aware of this area of psychometrics. So there's a nice book, Emotions of Normal People by Dr. William Marston. The original book was that. And DISC is based on that. It was a PhD from Harvard. So these are all tried and tested scientific principles. Let me move forward. This is explaining briefly about DISC. I will not go into DISC because it's a subject in itself, right? But just to say that the Ds are more task-oriented and outgoing people. The influencer, the friendly people are more people-oriented and outgoing. And you can see the rest on the screen in front of you. The steady people are reserved, people-oriented. And the compliant people are task-oriented but reserved. And now you need to know that each of these different personality types are there. And you need to relate well with them, to communicate well with them. Great salespeople also need to have a purpose. So whenever you're going into a sales meeting, B2B or B2C, you need to have a purpose. And the purpose must be to focus on your prospect, not on your product. If you focus on your product, you tend to become either a product pusher or an overseller, or sometimes even an order taker. When you're focused on the prospect and you're saying my purpose is to professionally help him to buy the product or service he needs, then you're coming from the right mindset, right set of beliefs, we believe, to make you hugely successful in sales because you're coming across as a problem solver. So let me go further. The purpose statement is very, very crucial in a sales meeting. The customer, imagine, has walked into your office, or you have walked into the customer's office. Initially, if I can just describe the sales, this is really talking about the end, the face-to-face meeting where the sales is going to take place. The earlier steps have happened. You would initially talk a little bit about their area of interest or talk about their business, right? And once you've talked about their business or their areas of interest and there's a little bit of warming up, then you would seek their permission to come out with your purpose statement. And the purpose statement should be this set of things which are mentioned here on this slide. You will ask permission. So can I outline the purpose of our meeting today? And usually because it's with an appointment, you've come to meet the business owner, they'll say yes, right? Once they said that, you'll say that I'll tell you a little bit about myself and about my company. Then I'll ask you a set of questions. Based on your responses to the questions, I'll come up with some alternate solutions for you to consider. If we both agree there is value, then I'll ask you to make an investment today. Is that fine with you? So if this route is followed, then usually people are hesitant to ask for the sale. That doesn't happen when you have followed this process of creating the purpose statement right up front. And usually in a sales meeting, the person who is asking the questions takes control of the meeting. So as a professional salesperson, you should take control of the meeting rather than let it go off in different directions. And the only way you can do that, because you have to respect and value the customer, is to seek their permission and create the purpose statement in this manner. So very, very important concept. Please make sure you have a purpose statement before every meeting that you do. Now, once you have the purpose statement done, then you need to be sure that you're asking the right questions and in the right manner. Because like I said, sales are made based on emotion, not logic. So I need to dig deeper, asking questions after questions until I've understood what is the hot button or what is the key challenge for them. Once I've understood that, then they may give me a buying signal. They may say, okay, when can you start with your product or service? At that time, I can respond to their questions. Otherwise, I should largely be in the questioning mode. Because according to us, sales is asking, sales is not telling. Telling is not selling. Selling is more asking the right questions. So let's move further quickly. And the sale usually happens when they've sent you this buying signal and you've hit emotion. And you've dug deeper for that emotion by asking the right questions. So the formula for change is another thing you must remember. To get people out of their comfort zone and to get them to take action in sales, we need to make sure that we are increasing the dissatisfaction level by asking them questions about their pain area, then giving them a solution or a vision for how that problem can be solved by the product or service we are selling. And the first steps, some smallest first step to overcome this resistance to change, where there's a natural resistance to anything being sold to or offered to anybody. So this is very important aspect to be remembered when you're talking about it. And I'll just leave you with the last couple of concepts. One is the question funnel. So how will you ask the questions? You know, to start with open-ended questions. Questions which can't be answered with a yes or a no are called open-ended questions. Once you've understood a little bit about their pain area, zero in on that one particular area which is of real pain to them, then ask specific questions, just like how a doctor does. Then offer them solutions. Two solutions, because we are professionally helping them to buy, so let them choose the solution they want. Then do a temperature check. Out of these two solutions, which one works better for you? And then move naturally into the detail. So, okay, so you like this solution, great. This is what we need to do. We need to complete this paperwork, and you tell me the day and time when we need to come with the product or service, right? So this is the question funnel. This is a new way of selling rather than the old way of selling. And when you're asking these open-ended questions, these are the list. Any question beginning with who, where, what, when, why, and how are open-ended questions. And when, of course, when you ask that question, you need to play dumb and dig deep means you're listening in listening mode. Not only listening to the words, but listening to the feelings underneath those words, right? And you're using things like inquiry and reflection to make sure that you're going deeper and deeper and asking the right questions. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation, brief presentation on how to do better sales. Sales is very important for you to run your business, as you know. And the more you convert from inquiry into paying customer, the better you'll do. So this is Sanjay Chaturvedi, firm owner and senior business coach at Bridge Sheila Action Coach, signing off. Thank you so much. I'll pass on to my colleague, Ashok Samsi, who will now talk about the business management processes. Over to you, Ashok.
Yeah, thank you, Sanjay. Good day, everyone. Today, I am going to speak about business management. I am Ashok Samsi, a business coach from Action Coach. I am based in Pune. Actually, there are thousands of books on business management and hundreds of virtual events on it. Okay. So to make this session practically useful to you, I will give some simple tips which you can immediately implement. Ask lots of questions to provoke you into thinking about your own business. Doing just these two things will take your business and you to a different level. But for that to happen, please keep your pad and pen ready to note the tips and the questions. There are 5 pillars of business: marketing, sales, finance, operations, and team. Okay. My colleagues have covered the first two. I will cover the remaining 3. Let's take finance. Actually, everyone in your business is managing finance, and accounts department is only a scorekeeper. Now IPL is going on, Dhoni, Virat Kohli, KL Rahul, all these are playing the game, and the scorekeepers are keeping the score. In business, everyone in your business is actually playing the game of business and managing finance. How it is, I'll just explain to you by an example. Suppose an important consignment, very high valued consignment is to be dispatched. And in this business, the overhead cost per month is 30 lakhs. So per day, the overhead cost comes to 1 lakh. Now this business consignment, suppose it is delayed by 1 day. What happens? This overhead cost of 1 lakh extra, it gets loaded on this consignment, and the cost has in fact gone up by 1 lakh rupees. This is the realization everyone in your business must have. We say sales is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is reality. So if cash is reality, how are you managing your cash flows? Are you having weekly cash flow projections? This is one of the templates in Action Coach which we follow. Another important concept in cash flow management is the cash gap. This is explained in this slide. Now suppose you ordered some goods, the goods arrive on 0 date, they arrive on 0 date, and the payment terms to the suppliers are 30 days. So within 30 days you have to pay them, so you pay after 30 days. Now for processing that material, you will take 60 days. Suppose you take 60 days, and after 60 days you dispatch, and the terms with the customers is they will pay after 60 days. So what is going to happen is, whereas you are paying after 30 days of receipt of material, actually you will get payment only after 120 days. Okay. So this 120 minus 30 is the cash gap. Okay. Now, how are you going to reduce this cash gap? Okay. One way is, you negotiate with your suppliers so that, they give you extended credit terms. Okay. The other is, whatever manufacturing processes you are having, how to make them more efficient so that this time of 60 days is reduced. The third thing is, negotiate with your customers and see that you payment terms are less than 60 days. And the most important, and which is often neglected, is management of receivables. Then comes, time mastery. Time mastery consists of 3 things: self mastery, planning mastery, and delegation mastery. Most business owners are always busy. They have changed the spelling of business from BUSINESS to BUSYNESS. Many are happy if their employees come to them for smallest of issues. In effect, they are doing their employees' work. So who is doing owner's work, such as planning, strategy, systemizing, recruitment, cash flow forecasting, budgeting? Nobody in their business. One of the simple things which can give you 10 to 15% increase in productivity is to ensure that everyone, including you, before you wind up for the day, prepare the to-do list for the next day and prioritize this next day's task using Pareto's principle. So what is Pareto's principle? 20% of the causes or activities will give 80% of the effects or results, and 80% of causes or activities will give 20% of the effects or results. The key is to identify these 20% activities which will give you 80% results. Suppose you don't do that, what happens? Suppose you start working in the 80% zone, you will get only 20% of the results. Now, just imagine if you are appearing for an exam and you get 20% only, will you be pass or fail? You must find out the value of your time. Here I have given a sample. Okay. Suppose profits are 24 lakhs per year. Number of hours worked per year is 8 hours per day multiplied by 300 days is equal to 2,400 hours. So 24 lakhs divided by 2,400 rupees 1,000, you know. So how are you investing your time? That is very, very important. First of all, find out the value of your time and see that you are investing it rightly. For the business to succeed, whatever product or service it is delivering, it has to be consistent. So here I would like to ask you, how many of your supplies are in full, on time and in specification? In short, FOTs. Do you measure it? Are you having customer complaint register? In addition to taking care of complaining customers, what are you doing to ensure that this type of complaint does not reoccur? Please remember that, you know, if 10 customers are unhappy, only one will register the complaint with you. 9 will just take away their business from you. Okay. So having a customer complaint register is very, very important. One of the key for success in business is communication. Communication with employees, communication with customers, past and present, suppliers, bankers. Are you doing it on regular basis? In systems, you know, full form of systems we say is save yourself stress, time, energy, and money. We are having a 9-step process starting with vision, mission, culture, SMART goals. Full form of SMART is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Otherwise, we say those are just dreams. Those are not goals if they don't satisfy this criteria of SMART. Okay. 5th is organizational structure. What is the present organizational structure and what the organizational structure would be when you achieve those goals? Positional contracts, KPIs, how-to systems, and management systems. Well, there is not much time to go into all the 9 steps. The critical and different systems, what we are having in Action Coach, you know, I will explain. That is positional contracts. Positional contract is something more than the job description. What is the outcome or result that this position is supposed to give? That should be very clearly spelled out. So that is what is the position contract. KPIs, once the outcome or result is specified, then how that person is going to give those results, what that person is going to do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, and annually, that should be specified. It is no use, you know, at the end of the year finding out, you know, this was the outcome he was supposed to deliver, but he has not done. So by monitoring these KPIs, we know whether a person is going to hit the outcomes, what he is supposed to do. Next is how-to systems. We say, you know, how-to systems need not be, you know, thick manuals which are just lying in the shelves. It should be simple, practicable things. Okay. I'll give 2 examples. One of my clients, you know, I used to have our session in his conference room. Every time we used to go to the conference room used to be in a mess. And he used to get very upset right at the beginning of each session. So what I suggested to him, you know, let's arrange the conference in ideal state. Okay. How he wants the conference to be. Take 4 photographs of the conference room and stick those photographs on the walls. Okay. And let's mention below that when you leave the conference room, it should be in this condition. Okay. Now he started practicing that. All his people started practicing that. And now whenever anyone enters the conference room, he will find it in the ideal condition. Second example is another client of mine. He used to find, there are some repeated mistakes happening on the shop floor. So what we did is, those operations where these mistakes were happening, we took videos, simple videos through mobile phones, okay, how the operation should be ideally done and what are the likely mistakes. And we kept a desktop on the shop floor where, anyone performing those operations could actually see what is the correct way and what are the wrong ways. After doing that, most of such mistakes were eliminated. Management systems. Now, when you are going to have a car journey, okay, when actually a car has got thousands of components, are you going to check each and every component to see that the car is okay for driving? No. You are just monitoring the performance of the car, based on a few parameters which are there on the dashboard, like speed, okay, engine temperature, okay, fuel, things like that. So what are you having in your business to see that your business is running smoothly? I can suggest a few things like, profit and loss, balance sheet, cash flow, days receivables, days payables, okay. Then number of leads, conversion rate, number of transactions, average sale value. These are the things, if you start monitoring these things, you will know, what is the condition of your business. You need not go into the depth of each and everything, what is happening in your business. So that is the management system. Another way, management system is to have regularly periodic review meetings. Okay. Coming to team, full form of team according to us is together everyone achieves more. And how does this team do that? There are 7 keys to a winning team. Okay. Strong leadership, common goal, rules of the game, action plan, support risk taking, 100% involvement and inclusion, and 7th is continuous learning. Now in Action Coach, we say action plan need not be very elaborate. Very simple action plan, which should be the outcome of each and every meeting. What needs to be done, who will do, and by when. Okay. And support risk taking. Everyone knows, that Kodak went out of business because of digital cameras. But do you know where the first digital camera was made? It was made in Kodak. Okay. It was made in Kodak. But the top management of Kodak, they focused on their current business and they were in comfortable zone of, chemicals, films and things like that. Whereas their competitors developed the digital cameras to such an extent that Kodak, focusing on films and chemicals, went out of business. 100% involvement and inclusion. One of the ways we teach in Action Coach how to do it is BIFL. Okay. What I feel like expressing. So at the beginning of any meeting, if you see, if there are 5-6 persons who are attending the meeting, 1 or 2 persons will be talking and the rest of them will be silent, even though they may be having good ideas. So to encourage them to come out with their good ideas. So this is done by BIFL, what I feel like expressing. At the beginning of every meeting, everyone gets 1 minute to express, what is happening in their work or their family or their learning. Okay. And continuous learning. This is very, very important. Some of my clients, what they have done is every Saturday, they have reserved 1 hour for learning. They will either call some external speaker who will talk to their people, or, one of the team members will explain how their own department works. Okay. So that's the way, the team learns, how each of the departments in the organization is functioning and how their work is related to the overall functioning of the organization. This is Deepak Parekh, okay, one of the prominent business persons in India. So what he said in August 2020, the Indian economy will be booming by next August. My question to you, but are you ready? You can find out by visiting our website, www.bridgeshilactioncoach.com, or register for our 2-hour webinar, at the link which I have mentioned on the slide. I'll give you 1 minute to note this. After that, I will end my presentation. I hope you have noted it. Okay. Take care and stay safe. Thank you.
Good day and welcome to the Marketing 101 presentation. I'm Coach Shaji Kuyakus here and I'll be taking you through this presentation. If you talk about marketing, there have been various methods and techniques that have been used throughout the ages. Some of the traditional methods were direct mail, which some people refer to as snail mail. When you talk about direct mail, it's about having content which is put into an envelope and sent through post. Now, this has been a very old technique and has been very effective in the past. For some time, though, this the relevance for this kind of technique waned, and this is again kind of being revived now by some of the more creative marketing people. The very reason for that being that the brand recall for a direct mail is way higher as compared to other marketing methods like email. So this is one of the techniques which you could say is back in action now. Another traditional method is the signage method, which has signages adorning buildings, shop fronts, and malls. Again, very widely used throughout the ages and also quite relevant today. And of course, now it's more on the digital side of the space. You can talk about billboards as well, which has been, you know, across the highways and hallways that you see huge billboards being used, which are printed, either printed or hand printed on canvas, and still very commonly in use. So this traditional marketing mode uses a lot of images, and as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and compelling images are actually a great way for raising brand awareness. This is another technique which was being used earlier and also relevant in today's times. If you look at flyers, which is more for localized marketing, used mostly by brick and mortar establishments, streets or malls, for spreading awareness about their products or about their establishment, more on the local side of things. This is something which was being used for many years and is still being used by some people. The last but not the least, of course, there are many other traditional methods. I just picked up a few because of the time that we have. The print ads, you can't say that it is dying, it is merely evolving. So because of the magazines and newspapers going digital these days, print ads have also come back into relevance, and using mobile penetration, the marketing techniques on the space has increased largely now. If you were to look at some of the new age marketing techniques, I would like to break them up into two parts, B2B and B2C. Of course, there is a overlap in a lot of these places. Let me talk about some of the B2B marketing techniques which are being used in the new age. One of the most effective B2B marketing strategies is the inbound marketing. So inbound marketing is a methodology that attracts customers by creating valuable content and of course experiences tailored to them. So this is a very strategic approach and is focused on creating information relevant to the prospect's needs and attract those who are more likely to purchase your product or service. The other method or technique is the social media marketing, which focuses on providing users with content which they find valuable and want to share across their networks. So this increases visibility and traffic to your website. So so sites like LinkedIn, Twitter, and other social media sites are used to do this kind of marketing. Another very important and effective tool is the search engine optimization. Now, in short, it is also called SEO. SEO is actually the process of increasing awareness and increase traffic to your website by making sure that this appears among the top unpaid or organic search results on search engines like Google, Bing, Yahoo, etc. Uh, Search engine optimization is not something that is very simple to do because it's got various parameters that need to be addressed, and it is best done by experts who focus on all these parameters and get this thing done for you. Search engine marketing is another very powerful tool that is being used today. Search engine marketing, or SEM in short, is a tool that is used to grow website traffic through paid advertising. So Google Ads is one such area where people come on Google and search for anything relevant to your business, and your ad pops up because you've done search engine marketing, which is paid online advertising. The One of the other very prevalent marketing techniques is industry events. So when you talk about industry events, it is trade shows which can be local, limited to a small geography, or it can be global. It can be a worldwide event or a trade show. And this is one of the top B2B networking tools where you meet people from specific industries, and all of them meet in one location and demonstrate their latest products and services. So in the B2B space, there are various other techniques that can be used. These are a few. The best way to do marketing for a business is a combination of all these. So you can have a combination of organic, which is natural or free marketing, combined with a paid platform as well. Coming to the B2C space now, there are some techniques which are very powerful in the B2C side. Of course, like I said, there is an overlap. So social networks is of course one of the most powerful tools that can be used in the B2C space. So Facebook and Instagram are widely used to market products and services for a business. Another tool that is being used, or technique, is the paid media advertising. So the pay-per-click method is what I'm referring to here. So here the ads are put on Facebook and Instagram and all the spaces where people come together, and they get to see your advertisement and decide either to buy or to know more about your products and services or your establishment. Another very powerful tool is the email marketing, which is a very powerful strategy in the B2C as well as the B2B space. One needs to ensure that the database that you have, to which you are going to send these emails, are relevant and are of the right people. If your target audience is not correct, then this technique will not work for you. You also need to have certain tools that need to be used across all these techniques, especially for email marketing, which gives you insight and analysis on the emails, whether they're being opened, whether they're being read, whether they're being your links are being clicked. So there are certain tools that need to be used for this as well. Another very useful technique is the direct selling technique, where sales agents build relationships face to face with individuals by demonstrating and selling products to them. So some of these companies like Amway and Herbalife use this technique where people meet other prospects individually and sell products to them. On the B2C space, there is another technique, which is the internet marketing or online marketing, which combines web and email to advertise and drive e-commerce sales. So there are various techniques that are being used today where if one prospect has visited a website and then he goes to Facebook, the Facebook shows him the ad about that website, about that product, about that service. So there are a lot of techniques around this in the digital marketing space that are being used to do marketing. So these are some of the marketing techniques in the B2C space. And like I mentioned before, there are various other techniques. These are some of the most widely used techniques. So in your business, if you are using marketing, if you are using any of these marketing techniques, or if you are doing any kind of marketing, the first question that comes to mind is whether it is an expense or an investment. So you might come across many accountants who may tell you that marketing is an expense. However, if for every rupee you spend, you get back more rupees, then that is what marketing is, and that is an investment. Now, uh, how do you check whether the marketing spend that you are doing in your business is actually getting you the required returns? So the most important thing to do is to test and measure. Any campaign that you do in your business, any marketing activity that you do in your business, any money that you're spending on marketing, you need to test and measure what are the results of that campaign. So if you do that, you will know what works and what doesn't. That is what is going to make a difference between marketing being an investment or an expense. So if you are spending rupees 1000 and getting back rupees 10,000, then it becomes an investment. And if you're spending 10,000 and getting back an ROI of 1000, then that becomes an expense to you. It's not a marketing. So the idea is to test and measure and see what is working and what is not working. What is not working needs to be eliminated, and what is working needs to be scaled up. That's what needs to be done. So when you do a proper test in marketing, what will happen is it will allow you to work out your acquisition cost versus your lifetime value of client. Now let us look at these two, which are very, very important in terms of marketing. What is your acquisition cost and what is the lifetime value of your customer? Let's look at an example on this. So in this example, we're taking a business who has spent 40,000 rupees on generating leads. And besides this cost, there are other sales expenses involved in selling to a customer. So they have spent another 40,000 on the other sales expenses. So the total sales expense for this business is 80,000 rupees. And this campaign has led to a total number of leads being generated of 200 prospects. So the cost of acquisition for each lead, this is not the client acquisition cost, this is the lead acquisition cost, which is very different, is rupees 400. Out of these 200 leads that were generated, 50 people actually bought from your business and who became customers. So if you do the calculation now, your client acquisition cost becomes 1,600. So this is a very important number to be noted. So your client acquisition cost for this particular campaign is 1,600 rupees. Every customer that comes into your business, you have to pay 1,600 rupees using this method of marketing. Now let's look at the other side of it. This customers, buy from you. Some buy worth 40,000, some buy worth rupees 2,000. The average value of each transaction in this business is 10,000 rupees. And let us assume that there is a 10% profit margin for this customer, for this business rather, and their profit becomes 1,000. So if you see on a spend of 80,000 rupees, the total revenue that they generate is 5 lakh rupees. That is 50 customers on an average value of 10,000 rupees, which is gives you the value of 5 lakh rupees. So spending 80,000, you've generated a revenue of 5 lakhs. And if you look at the profit side of it, you've generated a total profit of 50,000. Let us assume that these customers who are buying from this business, some of them buy once, some of them buy 5 times, some of them buy 10 times. The average number of transactions per customer is 3 for this business. So the lifetime value for each customer becomes 30,000 rupees. And if you calculate the lifetime profit for each customer, the lifetime profit for this campaign is 1,50,000 rupees. So this is an important calculation that needs to be done in order to understand the marketing spend that you are doing. So in Action Coach, what we say is the lead generation is important. You do a lot of marketing, you get a lot of people coming into your business. It is also very important that you convert them, that you make it easy for them to buy. You create an environment where the leads that are coming are actually buying from you. So there are a lot of strategies that you can use in terms of your conversion rates. So Action Coach has almost 83 strategies around just that area. So marketing combined with conversion is something that needs to be needs to be looked at in a very important way. In conclusion, if you keep marketing and you test and measure and you focus on conversions, your marketing will be a profitable investment and it will no longer be called an expense by your accountant or anybody else. So keep marketing and grow your business. Thank you. See you later.